the victims. Last month, Norwegian police uncovered a massive paedophile ring, leading to the arrest of 51 men and the seizure of 150 terabytes of data, including photos, videos and chat transcripts. You might think, wow, 51 people, that is a huge number. No, that's actually a surprisingly small number. Last year, European police agency Europol uncovered a massive online paedophile ring, which led to the arrest of 184 people and the recovery of 230 abused children. An internet paedophile ring with up to 70,000 members, thought to be the world's largest, has been uncovered by police, a security official said on Wednesday. The European police agency Europol said in a statement that Operation Rescue had identified 670 suspects and that 230 abused children in 30 countries had been taken to safety. More children are expected to be found. This was a colossal international child sex trafficking network. Unsurprisingly, these people met through the use of an internet forum and then would proceed to message each other and continue their activities that way. And the forum that this website was on was operated from a server based in the Netherlands. In 2004, Portugal was rocked by a child sex abuse scandal that is known as the Casa Pia scandal. It has already been billed as Portugal's trial of the century, a child abuse case involving a state-run orphanage, as well as TV personalities and diplomats that has horrified the nation. The Casa Pia affair, which has shaken the very foundations of the Portuguese state, finally goes to trial on Thursday. Former presidents have been accused of turning a blind eye to complaints about systematic abuse over more than a decade. As a result of this investigation and trial, 5 men were convicted and jailed of the abuse of over 100 boys and girls from this orphanage. This was one of the longest running trials in Portuguese history, and it started when few of the victims came forward and alleged that there was a sex trafficking operation operating from within these orphanages, and alleging that there were politicians, diplomats and media personalities who were involved in a paedophile ring and actively covered this up to protect themselves. It should come as no surprise that authorities investigating the disappearance of Madeleine McCann believe that she may have been snatched by a paedophile ring to order. According to an email sent by the Metropolitan Police, a child abduction ring based in Belgium placed an order for a young girl. 3-year-old Madeleine was spotted while on holiday in Portugal by someone connected to the gang, who took a picture of her. The photograph was sent back to Belgium, where the paedophile ring agreed that she should be abducted. Met Officer John Shord wrote the email to Leicestershire Police on March the 4th, which was passed to Operation Task, the British end of the investigation. It said, "Intelligence suggests that a paedophile ring in Belgium made an order for a young girl 3 days before Madeleine McCann was taken. Someone connected to the group saw Maddie, took a photograph of her and sent it to Belgium. The purchaser agreed that the girl was suitable and Maddie was taken." Belgium has long had problems with child sex trafficking rings being ignored, as this article all the way back in 2002 will show us. A Belgian television station has broadcast a clandestine interview with the paedophile murder suspect Marc Dutoit, who is awaiting trial on charges of abducting, raping and killing 4 girls. He was arrested in 1996 in a case which rocked the nation. 2 of the children he abducted starved to death in makeshift dungeons under his house. He also said that he had been part of a wider paedophile network, but said the justice system did not want to pursue it. "There is a well-grounded paedophile ring," he said. "I maintained regular contact with people in this ring. However, the law does not want to investigate this lead." The BBC's correspondent in Brussels said that the interview was bound to fuel conspiracy theories that the delay in bringing Dutroux to trial is because of a cover-up by members of the Belgian establishment allegedly linked to paedophile activities, which is something that the BBC themselves have been accused of on multiple occasions. For example, by Jill Dando, the murdered television presenter who tried to alert her bosses to a paedophile ring at the BBC involving big-name stars. The friend and retired BBC worker said the late Crime Watch host was told DJs, celebrities and other staff were involved in organised abuse, but the anonymous source says no one wanted to know when Miss Dando raised concerns about the alleged ring and other sexual abuse claims at the BBC. She is said to have passed a file to senior management in the mid-1990s, but they never carried out an investigation. This is of course all old news in Britain, as the Jimmy Savile scandal has broke and prompted a flood of calls to abuse victims groups from people who claim to have been abused by him. Widespread allegations of sexual abuse against Sir Jimmy Savile, which Scotland Yard confirmed stretch back 6 decades, have seen victims groups swamped with pleas for help. The case has dredged up painful memories for the victims of child abuse, who are also now coming forward in their hundreds to seek counselling. Pete Saunders, Chief Executive of the National Association for People Abused in Childhood, said its hotline received 1,400 calls in the last 10 days, 7 times the normal amount. Jimmy Savile had a long and distinguished career in broadcasting in Britain, and was a very popular figure in British media, until of course this scandal broke. And after this scandal broke, the floodgates opened. This scandal reached the very top of the BBC, with major entertainment figures like Gary Glitter, Max Clifford, Rolf Harris, and radio DJ Chris Denning being convicted of child sex offences over a period of 30 years. And as you can see as we go through the rest of this video, all of this is maintained by a conspiracy of silence by people who are afraid of the power of the people taking part in these activities. Only last month did the football industry receive its own paedophilia scandal, of how football has been shaken to its core by tales of sexual abuse by monsters in tracksuits. Stories of historic sexual abuse in youth football have emerged this week. Former Crew player Andy Woodward was the first to give his account. He spoke of his ordeal at the hands of paedophile Barry Bennell. This is not something that is isolated, and it's not something that's confined to Europe. In total, 1,400 child abuse suspects have been identified. Of the 1,433 suspects identified, 216 are now dead, and 261 are classified as people of public prominence, with 135 coming from TV, film or radio. Of the remainder, 76 suspects are politicians, 43 are from the music industry, and 7 come from the world of sport. A total of 666 claims relate to institutions, with 357 separate institutions identified. Of these, 154 are schools, 75 are children's homes, and 40 are religious institutions. They also include 14 medical establishments, 11 community institutions, 9 prisons, 9 sports venues, and 28 other institutions, including military groups and guest houses. This is a widespread problem, and it reaches from the very bottom to the very top of our society. As I said, this is not an isolated problem. Almost every entertainment industry seems to have some variant on this story, especially when it comes to dealing with child stars. I was molested and passed around, says Corey Feldman as he describes his ordeal at the hands of a Hollywood paedophile ring, and said Corey Haim was just 11 years old when he was first raped. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Feldman discusses how he was repeatedly molested by adult males in the industry, saying these men would pass many young stars back and forth to each other. He also reveals that his closest friend, Corey Haim, was raped when he was just 11 by a producer, the start of a long cycle of sexual abuse that Feldman believes led to his friend's problems with drugs and alcohol in later life. Haim would struggle with drugs up until his death in 2010 at the age of 38, a death that Feldman blames on the men who abused the actor.
I can tell you that the #1 problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be pedophilia. That's the biggest problem for children in this industry.
The casting couch even applies to children.
Oh yeah. Not in the same way. It's all done under the radar.
Nobody talks about pedophilia.
It's the big secret.
And it's widespread?
Oh yeah. I was surrounded by them when I was 14 years old. Surrounded. Literally. Didn't even know it. It wasn't until I was old enough to realize what they were and what they wanted and what they were about and the types of people that were surrounding me till I went, oh my God, they were everywhere like vultures. I'm saying that there are people that were the people that did this to both me and Corey that are still working, they're still out there, and they're some of the richest, most powerful people in this business.
And they are
and they do not want me saying what I'm saying right now.
Are you saying that they're pedophiles?
Yes.
And that they're still in this business?
Yes.
That's what, and that's what you're saying in your book. When you talk to, when you talk to
and
parents,
they don't want me here right now. Trust
Corey,
me. They want me dead.
And this isn't just one person saying this either. Elijah Wood has said something very similar. In an interview for the Sunday Times, he said that child actors are regularly preyed upon by vipers in Hollywood. He said he never went to parties where that kind of thing was going on because his mother protected him from interacting with people who could take advantage of him. But he says, I have been led down dark paths to realize that these things are probably still happening. We are also aware that there are paedophile rings operating within Western governments. In Britain, ever since the 1980s, there have been a long trail of allegations that there is a paedophile ring at the heart of the British establishment. The claims are of a VIP Westminster paedophile ring operating from the heart of the establishment from the 1960s onwards, and has led to allegations of a massive cover-up across Whitehall, spanning decades, pressure on the police and prosecutors not to pursue cases, and the apparent disappearance of key dossiers and files detailing claims of child abuse and alleged attackers. Now that these people are getting old and dying, the truth is emerging about the systematic sexual abuse by members of the British government and how that was covered up. In 1983, a controversial MP, Geoffrey Dickens, made a series of incendiary claims about active paedophiles in the corridors of power. He handed a file containing the names of alleged perpetrators to Leon Britton. Publicly, the authorities shrugged off the claims and no trial or prosecution would follow. The dossier mysteriously disappeared. A journalist who was investigating this dossier was confronted in his office by a furious member of Parliament who threatened him and demanded the documents. He says he was frothing at the mouth, really shouting and spitting in my face. He was straight at me like a raging lion, ready to knock me through the wall. The editor's resistance was futile. The following morning, police officers from the counter-terror and intelligence unit known as the Special Branch burst into the newspaper office, seized the material, and threatened to have Hale arrested if he ever reported what had been found. Ex-Thatcher Minister Lord Tebbit said that this was probably a political cover-up of this child abuse to protect the system, as it emerged that 114 more documents were lost. Former Conservative Cabinet Minister Lord Tebbit says he believes there may well have been a political cover-up over child abuse in the 1980s. Norman Tebbit, who served in a series of ministerial posts under Thatcher, said that the instinct of the people at the time was to protect the system and not delve too deeply into uncomfortable allegations. Naturally, the people involved with the system, even if they weren't involved with this kind of thing, wanted to maintain the status quo and prevent this kind of scandal from breaking out. The missing dossier was compiled by Dickens, is thought to have detailed allegations of 1980s Westminster paedophile ring, and is now known to be one of the 114 potentially relevant Home Office files that were destroyed, lost or missing. It has emerged. This issue is still going on, with the Home Office under fire over this lost dossier in 2014. The Home Office said that a 2013 review found the credible elements of the dossier which had realistic potential for further investigation were sent to police and prosecutors, while other elements were either not retained or were destroyed. This had all the hallmarks of a cover-up and was so investigated in turn. One allegation is that an inquiry involving an operation targeting young men in Dolphin Square near Westminster was stopped because officers were too near prominent people. Another involves a document found at an address of a paedophile, which originated from the Houses of Parliament and listed a number of highly prominent individuals, MPs and senior police officers, as being involved in a paedophile ring where no action was taken. And it will come as no surprise to you that nothing came of any of this. All of this just disappeared. The journalists involved in investigating this believe that there was a cover-up. Former Daily Mirror crime correspondent Jeff Edwards has recently been contacted by the police. He says he was told by a detective in the 1980s an investigation into paedophiles was closed on the orders of a senior politician. "I think this was a cynical cover-up," he said. "There was no doubt in their minds that the way that they could deal with this was to simply expunge it from the record. As far as they were concerned, they could make it go away forever." Britain is of course not the only country in which this has happened. Survivor of alleged elite paedophile ring, including former Prime Minister, speaks out. A woman claiming to be the victim of a VIP paedophile ring, which involved 3 former Prime Ministers, has alleged she was prostituted to paedophile parties at Parliament House in Canberra. Speaking to media in Sydney, Fiona Barnett detailed her alleged abuse by the alleged elite paedophile ring 40 years ago. The 45-year-old said that she was abused by the ring, which included high-ranking politicians, police and members of the judiciary at the age of 5, and claimed there were thousands of other victims. "My experiences were horrific beyond words," she said, "but the way I've been treated for reporting the crimes I witnessed and experienced has been far worse than my original abuse experiences." And yes, there have been Australians who have been jailed for their parts in paedophile rings. David Glenn Ketchin, a member of paedophile Shannon McCool's child exploitation website, was jailed for 7 years and 5 months. McCool, a former government carer in South Australia, is serving a 35-year sentence for the sexual abuse of multiple children. One of the Adelaide members of this global website, Ketchin, 30, had previously pleaded guilty to possessing, accessing and disseminating child exploitation material. The district court previously heard Ketchin use the name Kinder Surprise on the website and regularly disseminated child exploitation material according to the requirements of his VIP membership status. And yes, there are paedophiles who operate at the very upper echelons of political power in the United States. Billionaire hedge fund mogul Jeffrey Epstein became a free man 5 years after he was first accused of sexually abusing underage girls. After months of reporting, the Daily Beast reveals the exclusive details of the investigation and the legal wrangling that saved him from a long-term prison sentence. During Epstein's term of house arrest, he made several trips each month to his New York home and his private Caribbean island. In the earlier stage of his sentence for soliciting prostitution for a minor, 13 months with the Palm Beach Stockade, he was allowed out to his office each day. Meanwhile, Epstein had settled more than a dozen lawsuits brought by the underage girls who were recruited to perform massages at his Palm Beach mansion. 7 victims reached a last-minute deal this week, days before the scheduled trial. Each received well over $1 million, an amount that will hardly dent Epstein's $2 billion net worth. The Palm Beach Police Department identified 17 local girls who had had contact with Epstein before the age of consent. The youngest was 14 and many were younger than 16. And that was just one of Epstein's many homes around the world. He also owned property in New York, Santa Fe, Paris, London and the Caribbean. The subsequent investigation by the FBI, reaching as far back as 2001, identified roughly 40 victims, whom, not counting Nadia Marcinkova, whom Epstein referred to as his Yugoslavian sex slave because he had imported her from the Balkans at age 14. Now 24, she had become a member of the household and is alleged to have participated in the sexual contact with underage girls. There are some heavy allegations surrounding politicians and royalty who spend their time with a convicted paedophile. For the first time, Jeffrey Epstein's Island of Sin is seen, showing where teenage sex slaves were allegedly abused by the banker and some of the world's most powerful men. Brought in on the billionaire's private jets, nicknamed by locals as the Lolita Express, numerous girls were allegedly taken to his 78-acre Little St. James hideout in the US Virgin Islands. It is claimed that they were made to take part in depraved orgies. The island is where Epstein's alleged sex slave Virginia Roberts claimed he made her take part in orgies, including one where she alleged the Duke of York was there for. Virginia claimed she and other girls were ordered by the banker to assemble at the cabana by the pool. According to flight logs, Prince Andrew paid at least one visit aboard Epstein's private jet to the island, although former staff claimed he frequented Little St. James several times. Court papers claimed visitors included prominent American politicians, powerful business executives, foreign presidents, a well-known prime minister and other world leaders. The flight logs also show that Bill Clinton went to Jeffrey Epstein's island fucking frequently. The flight logs show that he went there 26 times in 3 years. The most powerful people in the world are doing this with impunity because nobody has the power to stop them. And when they are, like Epstein, finally brought to trial, he simply pays off the victims and escapes the sentencing. But as I said, this stretches from the very top right down to the very bottom of society, as this 2005 article on the BBC will show us about child abuse sex gangs in France. France has been shocked by the scale of abuse revealed at the Angers paedophile trial, where 65 adults were accused of sexually abusing 45 children. The abused were aged from 6 months to 14 years, and some of them were prostituted and raped by their own parents and grandparents in a poor district of the town in western France. The accused were mostly from deprived backgrounds, and many of them were unemployed and had learning difficulties. Some were illiterate and appeared not to fully understand the charges they faced. A number said that they themselves had been sexually abused when they were children.